Hi, and good morning, and welcome to the Miami-Dade Chamber of Commerce Member Connection. I'm your host, Eric Knowles. But before we get started, a word from one of our supporters.
At Convey, we're not only dedicated to solving today's biggest challenges facing healthcare organizations, we're also committed to predicting and planning for tomorrow's challenges by uniting a family of companies. We combine powerful technology with robust data analytics to deliver integrated end-to-end solutions that achieve meaningful results. Start your journey towards transformative business performance with Convey.
Hi, and welcome back to the Miami-Dade Chamber of Commerce Member Connection. As I said, I'm your host, Eric Knowles, president of the Miami-Dade Chamber, as we celebrate 50 years. Chamber started back in 1974, and here we are doing the work helping build Black business, small businesses, minority, and women-owned businesses. And you know the deal. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited because this is what we do. We help businesses grow. And I have a gentleman that this is new to me. I don't know if I ever sat down with an engineer. So we have Mr. Patrick Ceres today with Lion Engineering. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Yeah.
I want to acknowledge a lot of the hard work that you and your team have been doing. I think 50 years is amazing, and I'm sitting here.
Well, I haven't been around for the 50 years.
I know, but you're a big fan, and you have a platform, and you encourage entrepreneurs to come on and talk about their business, and it's really something amazing to see. So I want to thank you.
No, thank you. You know, and I want to thank Miami-Dade College for giving us this platform. You know, a couple of years ago, we reached out to them and they opened the doors. I'm a proud alumnus of Miami-Dade North, and to come back here, it just brings back so many memories. And talk about how long ago that was almost 50 years ago.
Well, you look great for it. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it.
But having you here, having those entrepreneurs that come here to be able to talk about their business, your dreams, your goals, it's exciting. First of all, you know, tell us a little bit about Patrick. And I know you're like a lot of us here in South Florida. I say us because I'm a first generation Bahamian. My father's from Bahamas. Grandmother raised by my grandmother, and now I actually my grandmother took me to the Bahamas when I was 8 months old.
Nice.
And so I was raised there until I was 6, and I came back to the U.S. when my father got out of the military. But
yeah, I have not quite the same story, but a similar story. I'm West Indian.
Okay.
You know, I was born in Trinidad.
Okay.
And me and my family, we moved to New Jersey when I was a child growing up, and lived there until I was around 7. And my dad decided he really wanted us to live where he was from. So we moved to Guyana when I was around 7, 8 years old. And I always joke with my dad that he started the trend of parents moving back in with their parents, because we moved in with my grandmother.
Right.
And, it was a really interesting thing because we, had this very comfortable life. And my dad was just like, I want you to grow up around your cousins, around your aunts and uncles.
And that's the thing. And I can appreciate that because, pretty much that's the way it was. And pretty much for Islanders, that's the way it is. And I think it is across the board, but we've kind of gotten away from that. But that's pretty interesting. Like you said, you were born in Trinidad, came to the U.S., went to New Jersey, and then went to Guyana. Well, that had to be great, growing up on an island.
A lot of climbing trees, a lot of swimming, canals. It was just kind of one of those things where it felt very communal. It's a very small town. I mean, Guyana has a population of, I think, about 800,000 people, but most people are along the coast, and everyone knows the last name. And, we kind of took care of one another. It was a really good experience. Also a very different experience, if you'll allow me to tell you a story.
Please.
So one thing that I found really different was you kind of go into a place of wanting to experience everything in life, right? And so I saw things that I never saw it when I was living in New Jersey. For example, we used to have these things called donkey carts, which were these horse-drawn carts that would actually, have a flatbed truck, and they would put a bunch of lumber and stuff on it. And when we moved there, we had this guy, Earl Waldron, may he rest in peace, an amazing driver. but he used to drive around to pick up a bunch of kids. So it'd be like 5 kids he's got to pick up before they get dropped off.
Right.
And his car didn't have any air conditioning. And Guyana is hot. Okay. 2 seasons. We have incredible rain and heat. So
Right.
those are the only 2.
Right.
So one day I was like, I'm not going to wait for, Mr. Waldron to come pick me up. I'm just going to go and I'm going to go. So I start walking home. It's about 1.5 miles. There's no hills or anything, not hills both ways.
Flat. Okay.
But, I see his Donkey Kart and I'm like, I can take a ride on that thing. And so I go running as fast as I can, but I'm pumping my fist and I jump and I miss and I hit asphalt and I roll around.
Oh my God.
But I think, that's kind of how life is.
Right.
You try everything you can.
Hey, if you don't try, you won't succeed. I say Michael Jordan said he took 1,000 shots that he didn't make, to make the shots. I forgot how many, but
exactly.
If you don't try, you ain't gonna get there.
Exactly. I would never had that experience if I were growing up in New Jersey, run behind a donkey cart.
A donkey cart. So, and again, I grew up, as I said, in the Bahamas. We didn't have air conditioning. Growing up in Miami, my grandmother's house didn't have air conditioning. Yeah. So I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. So when did you come to the U.S.?
Well, I moved back to the U.S. when I was around 16 and finished high school in New Jersey.
Okay.
And
went back to the snow.
Went back to the snow. Yep. Back to the snow.
Yeah. I grew up in a little town outside of Buffalo, New York. So I had the same experience. And I say my experience is I grew up building snowmen and sandcastles, being on the beach, living in the Bahamas. So anyway, So you come back to the U.S.
Come back
at 16.
Yeah, moved back to South Florida to go to university. I had family here and wanted to, kind of wanted to be in the warmth again.
Right.
Moved back in 2001. Got a engineering degree, civil engineering.
From what school?
From Florida Atlantic.
Okay.
Go Owls.
Okay.
And got a master's degree in environmental engineering. From Johns Hopkins.
Oh, so you're one of those smart guys.
Oh no, I just try really, really hard. Always trying. I believe the key to life is just to be over prepared.
Okay.
And yeah, I've started my career in Atlanta. Lived in Atlanta for a number of years and moved back to South Florida about 4 years ago.
Okay. And now you have this amazing engineering company. So let's what made you, like you said, you started your career in Atlanta, came back to Miami, and basically 4 years ago started your engineering firm?
No, I actually came back and took a job offer at a different company, and about a year and a half ago I started my own
year and a half
firm. But I think what kind of motivated me to start my own company is I looked around, right? I think it's important to be a sponge when you're in a particular place in life, especially as a junior engineer, really early career professional. Tried to soak up a lot of knowledge. I had really, really good bosses and mentors. Gordon Cobb is an amazing, my first boss, who was incredibly hardworking, got in the office very early, would stay incredibly late. And my other former boss, Elena Modlin, also an amazing individual. And so I learned from people, but I looked around and I didn't really see a lot of really senior Black engineers. So, bless you.
Excuse me. Yeah, all of a sudden you got a little bug.
That's okay. And I wanted to be in a position to actually mentor new up-and-coming engineers in a way that I had more control over it. And I thought a lot of the work that I was doing, while providing a lot financially, it wasn't really fulfilling me in the way that I wanted to. So I wanted to lean into more environmental justice work, doing more work around affordable housing, and doing more projects that just kind of spoke to my purpose, right? I feel like we all kind of go through life trying to figure out what are the things that align. Life is so short. How do you make your best contribution? How are you able to change and mold the world in the limited amount of time that we have?
Right. Wow. We're going to take a break in a minute. A year and a half, you started your engineering firm. We talk about climate change. You being an engineer, I'm sure you're dealing with a lot of that. But before we get into that, we're going to take a break. We're going to get a word from one of our supporters, and then we'll be right back. Talk to you in a minute.
Learn and earn today at Miami-Dade College. College graduates earn 56% more than high school graduates and $1 million more in lifetime earnings. A degree from MDC is your path to greater earning power and career success. Choose from hundreds of affordable high-tech and in-demand career programs, including cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, business, and nursing. Learn and earn today at MDC and fast track your career. Enroll now at mdc.edu/purpose.
Hi, and welcome back to the Miami-Dade Chamber Member Connection. I'm here with Mr. Ceres, and we're talking about Lion Point Engineering, a firm he started a year and a half ago here in Miami. And that's one thing that's so exciting about Miami. There's so many opportunities. And why did you choose Miami? Well, obviously you came back and you got your degrees at FAU, and so you decided to stay.
Yeah, so actually I'm in Broward.
Okay.
But one of my amazing clients, who you know, Linda Harris, is in the chamber, and she started talking to me about the chamber, and I thought it would be a good idea to, want to interface with a lot of the business owners and the Miami-Dade County community. So while I'm based in Broward, I do have an affinity for Miami.
Right. I mean, South Florida.
Yeah.
I mean, we are, Dade, Broward, Palm Beach. Pretty much, you have that opportunity to maneuver between the three counties, between certifications with school boards or the municipalities. Tell us, what is Lion Point Engineering?
So Lion Point Engineering is a consultancy. Essentially, there's really two major facets. One has to do with site assessment and remediation.
Okay.
As you're well aware, there's a lot of areas that have kind of had some levels of neglect and that have had contamination. So a large part of what the consultancy focuses on is when people are trying to redevelop properties, doing things like soil sampling, groundwater sampling, soil gas sampling, getting an understanding of if the property is suitable for redevelopment.
Okay.
A lot of the concerns, or what people don't always get, is if you're going to redevelop a property, right, and it has some type of arsenic contamination. A lot of what we see is folks converting from a golf course, for example, to townhomes. Well, what happens is essentially there's what's called human health risk assessments, where they have studies that actually show that, smaller children, if they're, playing around on, a playground, they'll go and they have what's called dermal. So they will put the soil, pick it up and put it in their mouth.
Okay.
So a lot of what the work that we do is essentially trying to make sure that when you're building things, that whether it's from a indoor air exposure, right, related to dry cleaners or any kind of indoor solvents from past releases, to anything that kind of runs the gamut, how do you make sure that whatever structure or development you're putting in place is safe for the occupants?
No, that's pretty interesting. You talk about golf courses, because obviously there's a lot of fertilizer that's put down to keep it green.
Yeah.
And so and then you see, for instance, right down the street from us, there's Lennar is building homes on a former golf course. And so, to your point, children playing on the playground, and children put stuff in their mouth all the time. And then other things like, I look at the big development at Liberty Square. You had older houses back in the 50s, 40s. A lot of houses, a lot of buildings were built with asbestos. And so those are the things I'm assuming that you're looking for.
Yeah, ultimately things like lead-based paint is an issue, right? You have, mold or water intrusion. There's any number of things that kind of run the gamut of things that are important from an environmental perspective when you think about what's safe.
Right.
I do believe it's really incumbent on us to really be mindful. There's a lot of factors that go into human health. So, for example, a lot of urban planning, a lot of places where people live, high density areas, are really close to highways and things like that. So it's not just the things that you're exposed to in your home, but then also as you move around, the particulate matter due to high congestion roadways is also something that's of concern. So really doing outreach, trying to educate people and trying to bring my clients along so that the developments that they're working on are safe for the families and the occupants of those structures. It's something that's really important.
And I'm sure this term. I first heard it back when I used to work for the Dolphins, and they were doing the first renovation of the stadium, and they talked about fugitive dust.
Yep. Yep, it's a big thing.
Fugitive dust. I don't know if you ever heard of that, folks, but And I guess when you're moving dirt and it's just the wind picks up and blows dust around. And those are the things you're talking about.
Yeah, and it's a big deal here because we have so many canal systems, right? And what that does is when you have all that dust, it ends up running off into streams, and it causes sedimentation. We want to have water bodies where fish can live, and they're not. It also increases the algae. You have a phenomenon called eutrophication, and now I'm going off into my nerd engineering.
No, that's good, but I appreciate it. I'm learning something.
Yeah, but another really major component of my business is around the environmental permitting for operating businesses, because a lot of businesses are operating, and I found that there was a gap in the marketplace for working with small and medium-sized businesses. For example, if you are, let's say, an auto repair or auto collision place, and you are doing painting, right? And you put a paint stack in, well, now you're looking at things like air emissions, because the solvents that you're using, they're going to have percentages of them that may be volatile organic compounds. And so you may have to get that permitted, because the state will then say, well, you're only allowed to use XYZ amount, or this kind of coating is what's a legal coating. And I think it's really important for people to kind of have someone that comes in, their main focus is how do we generate business and get customers in the door. But, someone with my background, my focus would be more on how do we keep you compliant? How do we make sure that you don't get fines? That someone doesn't just show up and say, hey, I see you've got this stack and you've been doing X, Y, and Z. Can you show us the permitting documents?
That's good information. Our office, we're at Barry University now, but we were downtown in a building that's actually going through a demolition. But because of the environmental concerns, they're actually demolished. It's not an implosion. They're actually going in and dismantling this building basically floor by floor.
Wow. Because
of it's probably one of the oldest buildings in Miami. And so it's taking a lot longer for them to go through the demolition process, because again, they're excavating a lot of the interior by hand.
My guess would be that they probably have some asbestos in the building,
right?
And the friable asbestos, those fibers get airborne pretty easily,
right?
And the diameter of them is so small, we're talking microns, that a lot of times they're invisible to the naked eye. So they want to, from a health and safety perspective, they can't just demolish it, because then you've got fibers going everywhere. So yeah, that makes sense. And sometimes a lot of times people don't necessarily think about the ramifications of the types of building materials, or how that construction.
And obviously we didn't know back then.
Of course, we're constantly evolving.
Exactly. I find this very fascinating. How many Black businesses do what you do here in South Florida? I'm sure there are many around the world and throughout the United States, but here located in South Florida, or I'm sure that's not necessarily your concern, but you're in business. And so there are obviously a lot of businesses that do that, but do we know of any other Black businesses that do that?
So you'll have to interrupt me, but one thing I want to do is I do want to give a thank you to my dad. I actually grew up, my dad's a geotechnical engineer.
Okay.
So I grew up around an engineer and in an engineering family.
Okay.
So that was a really good role model and example for me.
Yeah.
And I've now being in the space, right, because part of what you do as a business owner is you want to get out and meet other people that are complementary to your business.
Right.
So I've been able and fortunate enough to meet a number of folks that are in the engineering space that have, I know, at least off the top of my head, about 4 different Black-run engineering firms. They're not all environmental.
Well, that's what I'm talking about, more from an environmental perspective. Obviously, there are engineering firms, to your point, but I don't find many doing what you do.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. I think I ran into maybe one gentleman, Benjamin, at your event last week, Thursday, and that was the only other person that I'm aware of.
Right. So, you've been an amazing guest. I love how you have given us this information. If someone wants to get in touch with you, how do they do that?
They can find me on LinkedIn. Patrick, Ceres is the last name, or you can go to my website, lionpointeng.com. I'm happy to have a conversation with anyone that is interested. So
someone who's looking to build something, someone who's looking at a building to possibly purchase, and they need to know whether it's environmentally sound, they need to call you.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. Well, this has been an amazing conversation. I know there's a lot of construction going on. There's a lot of movement in our city. Everywhere you go, you see cranes. So if you want to hire an engineer, call Lion Point, call Patrick. And if you want to know more about the chamber, call us at 305-751-8648. Go to our website, m-dcc.org. Thank you for tuning in. See you the next time.